Hey everybody, welcome back to the Freedom Men's Podcast. We are really excited about today's topic. It is about friendship, and this is kind of a unique focus, and we want to kind of set a foundation on some things like expectations that we have of our friends and with our friends, and then responding to life change, because we all go through a lot of different things. We have a lot of big things going on in our lives, and so responding to life change within that friendship with that friend in different ways. And today is a special day. Pastor Kyle, why don't you let us know why it's so special?
Yeah, it's special. We're talking about friendships, and Freedom Church, you probably heard me say a lot. I have three best friends. I have Matthew, Jared, and Eli, and these three friends have been my friends for 20 years. And today, I've got one of them in the room with us, our very first ever Freedom Podcast guest, and none other than my best friend, Matthew DeBlanc, came all the way from Lantana, Texas. But Matthew, you and I didn't meet in Lantana or Flower Mound. We met actually right here in Carrollton.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, 20 years ago, man, you and I, our lives crossed paths. It was random. It wasn't intentional. It was unexpected. But there was a time that you and I sat down together with another group of people, and there was something about that room, something about you that drew me to you, and vice versa.
Yep.
And we connected. We had a conversation. That conversation led to more conversations. That led to just doing life together, and then just growing and evolving. And here we are, crazy 2 decades later, families, kids, marriage, transitions in life, you name it, man. We've been through it, and there's a lot more life to go through as well. But I'm grateful that we have this friendship that is a good foundation for us to just to grow from, and to continue to move forward in our lives together. Yeah, best friends, man, BFFs.
Absolutely. And when you talk about a best friend, I think it's important to remind all of Freedom and even kind of our men that several months ago, we had a professional counselor here. His name was Dr. Don Leachy.
Yes.
And Don Leachy made a statement, Matthew, and I called you right after this happened. He made this bold statement. He said, if you don't have a best friend, it's not if you have an affair, it's when. Yeah. And I immediately called Matthew. I was like, Matthew, you'll never believe this. Like, this is what he said. And I think that's kind of why we're talking about the topic today is best friends, because men, we got to have them.
Yeah, because your friend kind of grounds you in a lot of ways. Yeah. They know things about you, and if you give them the ability, they can speak into your lives. They can kind of hold you accountable, and that's why I think he said it that day of if you don't have a friend, then it's not if, it's when, because you don't have someone to kind of help keep you in line with their influence, their role in your life. So you guys have really been friends for a long time, 20 years, you said. With that, did you guys always feel like you were as close as you are now? I know that's kind of obvious. That's probably a no. 20 years doesn't just happen naturally. But with that, what were kind of some of the stages that you guys went through, especially at the beginning of kind of the evolution of your friendship?
Yeah, I think I saw this online. I thought it was perfect. Friendship starts out as an acquaintance. You met at a church. You met in a roller skating rink. Yeah. You met at your work. Then you move into the second phase, which is just a friend. Goes a little deeper. And then over time, you become a close friend. That friend kind of separates from the other 5 or 6 that you may have in your workplace or wherever you go to hang out for your recreation. And then finally, there's this fourth stage, which is best friend. Mm-hmm. And Matthew, how have you seen our relationship evolve through kind of those 4 stages?
Yeah, Kyle. So I think it's important for everybody to understand that you're going to have people in your life that will always just be acquaintances. That's okay. Mm-hmm. You could have an acquaintance for 20 years. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Yep. You go to the next phase. You could have friends. They're friends. They're not good friends, great friends. They're just friends for 20 years. That's amazing. Nothing wrong with that either. But then you also could have that close friend. What is a close friend, right? It's somebody that's more than an acquaintance, more than just a friend. They're a close friend. You're going to let them into your life a little bit more than you would a friend. Way more than an acquaintance, but then you take that next step and that person becomes sometimes a best friend, right? So just like you, I've got a handful of best friends. Yep. 3 best friends. I could say that. How many close friends do I have? I don't know, man. Maybe I could count them on 2 hands. How many friends do I have?
Hundreds.
Yeah, thousands on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
But we've got friends all over the place, all over the nation. You could even say all over the world, just from people that we've met.
Yeah.
on different trips we've taken or whatever over the years, how many acquaintances do we have? People that feel like they know us and that we feel like we know them, right? They're on our phones, they're on Facebook, right? They're on our friends list, they're on Instagram, InstaSham. They're all these people. Nice. They're just acquaintances that we have. But when it comes to being a best friend, I think that is something that is certainly unique. It's something that's very special. But I think it's something that as a man, which is sometimes hard to do, that we have to be honest. We've got to be humble. We've got to be vulnerable enough to allow somebody close enough to our lives to trust them enough with the things in our lives that sometimes we're not even willing to tell God about those things, right? That we need to have somebody that we can go into this life with this deep relationship that we have with Him, not in a weird way, but just in a real way, right? Just in a very real way.
That's good.
So for us, it started out, we were acquaintances, man. We just kind of connected, hung out, but there was something that was just there that we wanted to, maybe explore a little bit deeper, right?
And I think as men, when we compare ourselves to women, men kind of have a harder time jumping into this than women. Women, they're more emotional. They want to spend time. Men, it's kind of a macho side of us that says, I could do life alone. I don't need anybody else with me. It's harder for us to say best friend. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons. I mean, you don't want to sit there and just talk and expose yourself for hours. Not to mention, we're so focused on conquering something or accomplishing something that we're not just kind of living life and enjoying it. We're usually kind of task oriented. And because of that, I think, you're not going to find two guys in a college dorm room that just met that day and kind of just enjoyed hanging out and stayed up all night and just talked. You may do that where you're hanging out with a guy you just met all night, but you're playing Halo. When I was in college, Halo was a big thing. Call of Duty. You're playing a game, you're going riding your bikes or something together, you're going to work out at the gym or something like that. And so you don't get as much of that kind of face time, that connection, because you're doing something. But that is our connection in a lot of ways. I mean, even last episode, we talked about a lot of shared activity with other men, those hobbies, those interests. And so I think that there's a lot of that. But I mean, for you guys, how have you seen that's been the case that you've connected?
Yeah, so that was actually my question, Sterling. Matthew, if you look at these phases, acquaintance, friend, close friend, best friend, what would the timestamp be on that? So you mentioned,
for us specifically.
Yeah. So you mentioned best friends. You've got 3 of them. Close friends. There's probably 10 to 15 friends. Could be hundreds, and acquaintances would be thousands. Yeah. So what would the timestamp be that you spend with these people in each of those phases?
For me, my best friends, my best mates, those are the ones who I spend the majority of my time with. And when I say with, not like we're always hanging out together, but my time on the phone, my time connecting with them, even via text. I spend the most time with best friends, right? With best friends.
This is like 2 to 3 times, 4 times, 5 times a week.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, you're just in continual conversation with them.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about, hey man, let's just sit back on the phone for 2 or 3 hours and or meet up at a coffee shop and have this FaceTime and sip some tea together. I mean, it's just sometimes 15-minute phone call here, 5-minute phone call there, sometimes 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on availability, but yeah, you've got to spend the best of your time with the best of your friends.
And then close friends, if that's weekly, close friends would be more like once a month, maybe once a quarter.
Once or twice a month, maybe, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Those conversations for me, they last a little bit longer because you're not talking to them on a regular basis. You're kind of more catching up. How's life? How are things going? Whatever, right? You're just catching up on life. Yeah, once or twice a month. And then the friends, once a year, maybe. I mean, truly, right? When I say friends, these are people that, yes, they're your friends. I would say, you're my friend. You're my friend. And so a lot of times it's in passing, whether it's at church or whether it's on the softball field or on the golf course, right? It's just those times where you are together or you're in passing. To say intentional, I hate to say this, but it's true. I'm not going to just pick up the phone and call a friend, right? A close friend, I will. A best friend, absolutely. A friend, it's more in passing, right? And sometimes it is on Facebook, right? Whatever, you're just like, hey, happy birthday, hope all is well.
Yeah, that's good.
No, it is. That's really good. I think kind of what you guys are talking about, the common ground that you have allows you to get past those initial stages. I think a lot of people don't have this friendship that y'all have. So in reality, I mean, who are we really talking to? We're talking to, really the guys that are like most of us, including me, who are really busy, taking care of a lot of things. And so how do you find that next step to set those expectations?
Yeah, I think the base question is, how do we find that friend? Through the common ground, through the expectations, and where do we find them? And I think that's what most guys are looking at and asking themselves. We built this over 20 years. We didn't start out as best friends. We started out acquaintance and moved through those stages. So where, and this is the question for the table right now, where and how do we find this person?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Because you can find friends in all the wrong places. But I think there are some right places to find friends. I think as a friend, there's a few key things that you have to have. Number one, you've got to be equally yoked with them, right? What does that mean? That just means that you have the same belief system, the same belief structure. I think that, as a Christ follower, I think it's very important that, that your life is centered around Christ, but also that your friendship, the commonality, first and foremost is Christ, right? Because with that comes the vulnerability. With that comes the accountability. With that comes, hey, we're going in the same direction, right? Even if it's two completely different careers, two different, socioeconomic statuses, like all of that. At the end of the day, we're moving towards the same direction, and that is pursuing Christ in all, right? In our marriages, in parenting, in our friendships, in our business, whatever that looks like, we're pursuing the same things. And we're spurring, like the Bible tells us, we're spurring one another forward in love. That sounds kind of, whatever. We're men, right? But there is that, right? We're spurring one another on in love. What does that mean? I'm not jealous of Kyle. Right. I'm not envious of Kyle if he has this huge win in his life, right? Or something good happens in his life. That's the mark of a friend, of like, man, I'm going to celebrate his victories, right? I'm going to rejoice whenever he's rejoicing. I'm going to mourn whenever he mourns. I'm going to be there with him and for him through the seasons and stages of his life. And so as we continue to, move forward in our friendship, I think it's important to understand that you've got to have those certain commonalities that move you forward together in your life.
I think Proverbs 18:24 states it right. It says, one who has unreliable friends will come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And I think that's what it is. It's through those tough times. It's through the successes and failures that you stick to that person and you don't run. Because it'd be easy for you to go win $1 million and you have to, and then me run. But you stick close. Obviously, I want to stick close to you because I hope I can get some of that money, right? But at the end of the day, you stick through the ups and downs in life. And I think that's what Proverbs are talking about. You and I kind of make this joke. There's a lot of times we call each other and we'll start the phone call with, "You'll never believe this." You'll never believe this. And kind of that's a big sticking thing for us. You'll never believe what just happened at work, what my wife just did. You'll never believe what my kids just did. You'll never believe what the lawnmower just broke on me. In fact, last night you just texted me, "You'll never believe that the mosquitoes are back." So there's this never believe. And how does that never believe keep us close together?
Yeah, it's just fun, right? I think friends should be fun. I mean, I think you should be able to laugh together. I think you should be able to, even make fun of each other from time to time, and not take things too serious, right? It's just, you got to have fun. You got to know when to have fun, and you got to know when, man, this is a serious conversation that I need my best friend. I need some advice. I need some wisdom, right? So there's a part of that as well. It goes back to, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. So, man, you could be a sharp piece of iron and start to sharpen yourself against a dull piece of iron. And before you know it, you're going to be a dull piece of iron as well, right? And so I think a part of it is, like whenever I have a conversation with Kyle, whatever it is, I always leave that conversation feeling refreshed, feeling energized. Even if it's something that's heavy that I'm talking to him about, on the backside of it, it's not a feeling, but I feel encouraged, right? Yeah. I feel like I've got direction now to take the steps forward that I need to take in whatever situation that may be. And so I think that, as we think about friendship and you peel back the different layers of it, we're talking about a best friend. And a best friend is when you really start to peel back multiple layers. Yeah. Best friends, they're in there for the long haul, for the longevity, for the marathon. It's not a sprint, right? New friends are exciting. Man, you meet somebody, it's exciting.
Right.
And man, it's a new story, it's a new relationship. But again, you've got to take it through that process: acquaintance, friend, close friend, best friend. Yeah. Those best friends, yes, there's intentionality behind them. They don't just happen. You've got to invest into that. Yeah. But at the same time, they do just kind of happen. Yeah. They just kind of present themselves.
Because you have the same values.
You have the same values, absolutely.
I think it's really cool you bring up a point that the best friend's kind of stuck. It's in concrete. Mm-hmm. And that's maybe 2 or 3 people that we have in our lives that we could all get to in our lives. And if you can say you got 2 to 3 friends, best friends, that's phenomenal. Most people don't have that. But I think the rest of them, Matthew, you bring this up, are kind of going in and out between close friends, and you pick that up. And then even going into new businesses and new places, you're always looking for this, and this is an old school term. I'm always looking for people that have a kindred spirit.
Yes.
A kindred spirit. So when you and I met in that youth room just right down the road on Hebron Parkway at Victory Assembly, you and I immediately had a kindred spirit. Yeah. There were 8 to 10 other people in the room, and I was like, great guy, great person, but it didn't have a kindred spirit. Mm-hmm. And the kindred spirit is what really brings that attraction, that next level to move you through those stages. Yeah. And I think to answer that question we asked a long time ago, where and how do I find a friend? Mm-hmm. You've got to lean into that kindred spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And setting some expectations of the amount of time, like you mentioned, I think that's crucial. You're investing certain amounts of time, but what happens if something is pulling the other person away a whole lot, and you still really desire that friendship, but they've either moved away or they just now had their 3rd kid, and you're still on your 1st, and you don't ever get that. How do you keep the relationship from changing so much? Do you have to be honest, or do you just let it go and understand it's a season and hope for the best that you reconvene in a few years?
Yeah, well, I think that's a perfect example for freedom. Everyone in this church knows that Andrew Lahan and I were really, really good friends. I wouldn't call him my best friend. He would be a really close friend through a number of years. I worked with him when he was in college. Well, just a few months ago, Andrew moved to Colorado. He was in my house. We said goodbye. We cried our tears as we kind of separated. And I looked at Andrew, and what did I do? I set expectations that I'm not going to be as close to him now as he was when he was right down the hallway in a different office than me. So I set new expectations. I love you. I'm with you. But we may only talk on the phone once, maybe twice a month. Text message still available. We may not even see each other, but once every other couple of years. So expectations hasn't changed. But this is the beauty of it, because Andrew and I were so close as friends. When we do see each other, nothing's lost. Nothing's dropped. Now, I do believe that there will be a day somewhere down the line that Andrew will come back into my life in a closer spot geographically, and we'll pick that back up. Yeah. But for the season, and we talked about seasons, there's a little lapse in how do you define that? Expectations.
Yeah, setting those expectations. And you feel like that's something anyone can do and should be received well by men?
Yes.
Do you think that sometimes, have you ever had conversations with people where that just didn't go well? Or maybe you had to move and you're not part of that church anymore, and someone was really hurt and let down, like you are failing them as a friend. How do you kind of navigate that, balance that?
It's good.
Yeah, I think when it comes to a best friend, I think best friends are always there, right? Again, I think sometimes we think someone is a best friend when they're actually just like a really, 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 really close friend. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so you need those really, really, really close friends, but then you have those best friends. And it's hard to really wrap skin around like what is a best friend. Mm-hmm. What is that? Is that something that is so rare that only a handful of men have it? Maybe so,
Yeah.
right? Maybe so. But I think the beauty of friendships is that as you are a good friend, you will attract good friends into your life.
Come
right?
on, man.
And so it just helps you as a person, as an individual, to become a better version of who you were today than you were yesterday, right? And so as long as you're pursuing that, and your pursuit isn't, man, I have to have a best friend, right? But you just become that best friend. You just become a good friend to someone else.
That's good.
And I think if that's your pursuit and that's your purpose, then eventually you're going to have that best friend or a handful of best friends. But don't get hurt if all of a sudden it's just like, oh my gosh, I thought you were my best friend, but what happened to us, right? Like, that's just weird, man. Like, that's just weird. You just have to understand that there are acquaintances, friends, close friends, and best friends. And I think sometimes when you lock in that best friend, it just happens. And maybe it is, Sterling, it's rare. I think it could be.
I think it is. I mean, and you even just nailed the last point, the focus of this whole topic for us today. Why do you think most people focus on finding the right person as a friend instead of maybe being the good friend or a good friend? And maybe, searching for one instead of trying to find it is a dichotomy and is backwards. What do you guys think?
I think just quick off the top of my head, we're a greedy people and we're a needy people as a whole. And so we're always looking for someone to invest in us and help us and pull us out of the muck and the mire. And instead of being the opposite of that, that's the new American culture. Greed, greed, greed. We're not just greedy of their money, but we're also greedy of their relationships. And you've got to not only be able to receive, but you also got to be able to give. And so I think that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah, and I think too, it's just easier to continue this pursuit of finding the right friend versus working on being the right friend, right? I think it's easy. In the culture that we live in today, it's difficult for a man. I mean, it really is. It's not easy. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of issues that surround men today that maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, even whenever we became acquaintances and the evolution of our friendship, that we didn't face back then, that men face today, that we face today. Right? So it's just a different world. But even the cancel culture, right? Like if Kyle says something that offends me, what am I going to do with that? Am I going to receive that because I know that Kyle cares about me, that he's got my best interests in mind? Or am I just going to cancel him? Just like, man, I don't let people talk to me that way, right? I want you to tell me what I want to hear, not what I need to hear.
So good.
And so I think whenever you talk about being a friend, because at the end of the day, it's me versus me. It's that person that I look at in the mirror every single day. Right. That's the person that I've got to wrestle with. Those insecurities that I have, those secrets that I'm keeping inside of me that are eating me from the inside out, right? So I've got to be a better person. I've got to be, more like Christ. I've got to die daily to my flesh. Right. When you do that, I believe that you're going to attract that in your life as well. And it's an investment. A friendship is an investment. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. And like what Kyle said, if you're that type of person that's just like me, mine, I'm going to get everything out of you that I can.
The greedy, the needy.
But I'm not going to return that, reciprocate that in that person's life. That could be a friendship, but that's about as far as it's going to go.
And that may be as far as it goes for you in general with anybody. Which if, you're listening to this and think, I don't have any friends, maybe that is a reality, as bad as that is. And that's kind of part of even what we're talking about is being able to reevaluate, to be introspective and to consider, am I being a good friend to people? Am I investing in them? Am I sharing the same values as people that I want to be friends with? Or do I have very different values and, the people that I like do one thing and I'm not able to do that and have self-discipline. So that's huge.
And I also think there's a weakness, and we're coming to the close here. The weakness is as Americans, we're also not self-aware anymore. I think being a best friend means self-aware of how much you are giving and how much you are receiving. And just look at the way we drive. Look at people in the shopping market now. Just look at people as a whole. We're not self-aware. We have no idea what our behavior is doing to the people around us. The only thing in our mind is our behavior, not the people around us. And being a good friend, is self-aware. And Matthew, we'll close with this statement. Show me your friends and I show you your future. And because of you, you've made me a better husband. You've made me a better father. You've made me a better executive pastor here at Freedom. You've made me a better speaker, even in different other phases of my life when I worked with Youth Alive and did all these other things. Because of you, you have made my future better. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so when we can look at friendships like that, show me your friends, show me your future, you want to make sure you're picking the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's key. Again, going back to our kids, my kids' friends will determine their future. The decisions that they're making today, the decisions that they make today, it will affect who they become when they're 20 years old. The decisions they make when they're 20 will affect who they are when they're 25 years old. Yeah. And that's the same thing for men. The friends that we surround ourselves with, they will determine what our future looks like. Yep. And so I absolutely believe that. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Yeah. And I'm grateful that I have a friend like Kyle Embry, a best friend like Kyle Embry, that I could say, man, this is a guy, my future looks so good. I don't know what the future looks like, but I know because I've got a best friend like Kyle that we're pushing each other forward in life. We're keeping one another grounded. We're being vulnerable and honest, and our gripe sessions, but not just gripe sessions, but solutions, right? We're just moving in the same direction in life. And God has a different call on Kyle's life and a different purpose on Kyle's life and his family's life than he does my life.
That's good.
But that's okay because we're running separate races, but the race is going to the same exact goal at the end, which is Jesus. That's what it's all about.
I love it. I think that's great. I think this is a blessing to a lot of men to be able to even see this and hear about this as a reminder of, man, maybe I need to start investing. I should really change some of my time and reprioritize it. And maybe it is finding someone through a hobby like we talked about and having something where you can really connect. So I think setting this foundation and dealing with life change is really good. Pastor Kyle, would you like to pray us out?
Yes, Father, I just thank you today for our time. Lord, this is a hot topic and a topic that honestly is not talked about much. And I pray that today the seeds that were sown into the listeners' lives today would produce fruit. Father, would they see friends and those friends become close friends? And then maybe, Lord, they move into that next phase of best friend. Lord, let best friends begin to arise in our men's lives. May they connect, may they be vulnerable, and may it be all done, as Matthew just said, for your name. May it all point to Jesus and make us better. Show you friends, and I'll show you future. And we believe this in Jesus' name. Amen.
That's really good. Amen. Thank you so much for being a part. And I know this is December, so we probably won't see you until, maybe after Sunday, but podcast-wise, we won't see you until 2023. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And we'll have some resources as gifts from us for you guys in this email. So make sure you check that out as well. And we will see you next time next year. See you later.